What is going on, Colts Nation? We need to talk about our quarterback situation right now because the national media is officially turning on us. Everyone is buzzing about whether last season was the real deal or just a massive fluke. And frankly, the disrespect is getting out of hand. Is our signal caller truly the leader we believe in, or are we heading for a major reality check this year? I have all the latest information on this heated debate that you need to hear. Before we dive into the truth, smash that like button, subscribe, and comment your thoughts below. Daniel Jones enters the 2026 season carrying the weight of massive expectations following his electric arrival with the Indianapolis Colts last year. The transition to the Colts offense under Shane Steichen initially appeared seamless, as Jones displayed newfound efficiency, consistent accuracy, and a disciplined approach to ball security that stood in stark contrast to his previous tenure. However, the momentum of that breakout campaign was cut short by a combination of a fractured fibula and a subsequent Achilles tear, leaving a lingering question regarding his true potential. Now, analysts like ESPN's Ben Solak are labeling that 2025 performance as a temporary blip rather than a sustainable career trajectory. Solak argues that Jones was operating at a level of historical production that far exceeded his established baseline, suggesting that the decline was already beginning to take shape before the injuries forced him to the sidelines. For the Colts, the reality of returning from a major Achilles injury creates significant uncertainty, making it increasingly difficult to view his 2025 peak as the new standard. As the team prepares for the upcoming schedule, the focus remains entirely on whether Jones can recapture that early magic, or if the skeptics are correct in their assessment. The narrative surrounding the quarterback position has shifted from celebration to extreme caution, with every practice, rep, and physical milestone being monitored closely by both the coaching staff and the fan base. Whether the Colts are witnessing a genuine transformation or merely a fortunate streak of high-level play remains the central debate. For every supporter shouting, "For the shoe," there is now an equal measure of doubt regarding whether Daniel Jones is the long-term solution, or simply a player who had the best 12 games of his professional career before the inevitable regression took hold in Indianapolis. To understand why the skepticism regarding Daniel Jones is currently at an all-time high, one must analyze the stark contrast in his 2025 statistical output. During his first 8 games, Jones was arguably one of the most effective passers in the league, helping the Colts jump out to an impressive 7-1 record. In that span, he completed 173 of 243 passes for a 71.2 completion percentage, tallying 2,062 yards, 13 touchdowns, and only 3 interceptions, while adding another 4 scores on the ground. These numbers suggested he had finally escaped the struggles that plagued him during his 6 seasons with the New York Giants. However, the narrative shifted dramatically after the Week 9 loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Over the following 4 games, Jones's efficiency dipped significantly, with his completion percentage falling to 61.9 and his touchdown-to-interception ratio tightening to 6-4. He looked noticeably less comfortable under center and began absorbing far more sacks, which raised red flags about his ability to handle pressure as the season wore on. This regression, combined with the severe physical trauma of an Achilles injury, provides the primary factual basis for the theory that his breakout was a short-lived anomaly. Critics point to this 2-part season as evidence that opposing defenses eventually adjusted to the Colts scheme, exposing the limitations that have shadowed Jones throughout his career. While the injury timeline remains a factor, the on-field evidence shows a player who struggled to maintain his early season accuracy and decision-making long before he was forced out of action. The Colts organization is now tasked with determining if the second half of that season was a byproduct of the physical toll or a sign of his actual ceiling, directly impacting their strategic planning for the 2026 campaign and beyond. This situation matters right now because the Indianapolis Colts are entering a pivotal season with little margin for error at the most important position on the field. The ambiguity surrounding Daniel Jones directly affects the team's ability to maximize the window provided by other elite roster pieces. With a bruising offensive line and a dominant rushing attack led by Jonathan Taylor, the infrastructure is built to support a high-level quarterback. But the departure of Michael Pittman Jr. creates a new layer of complexity. Without a veteran presence like Pittman Jr., to consistently command defensive attention, the burden falls on players like Alec Pierce and Josh Downs to elevate their production. If Jones cannot replicate his 2025 efficiency, The entire offensive structure faces a significant challenge in moving the chains and keeping drives alive against improved defensive schemes. The uncertainty regarding his health and his ability to regain his prior form places the entire depth chart under a microscope. Furthermore, the Colts are operating in a landscape where the competition is not waiting for a quarterback to fully recover from an Achilles tear. Any dip in performance from Jones puts immediate pressure on the rest of the unit to overcompensate. This transition period is critical. The team is essentially betting on the hope that the first 8 games of last year were the real Daniel Jones, while acknowledging the data that suggests otherwise. Every game in 2026 serves as a referendum on whether this partnership can sustain success, or if the franchise is essentially waiting for the inevitable outcome of a career-long struggle to reassert itself. For the Colts, the success of the current roster hinges on the quarterback being able to navigate this high-stakes pressure without the security blanket he enjoyed during his first year in the system. The debate over whether Daniel Jones is a legitimate breakout star or a classic flash in the pan centers on the quality of his support system in Indianapolis compared to his time in New York. While Ben Solak and other skeptics emphasize his previous history of poor play, defenders of the quarterback argue that he was never properly coached or equipped while playing for the Giants. In New York, he was often left to rely on Saquon Barkley, who struggled to stay on the field, leaving Jones with little in the way of reliable pass-catching threats or consistent protection. In contrast, the environment created by the Colts last year featured a much more stable offensive identity, which allowed Jones to operate with a level of confidence he hadn't displayed in years. Despite this, the challenge for 2026 is that Jones must prove he can succeed in a more demanding environment with a different group of primary targets. The reliance on younger receivers like Josh Downs and Alec Pierce means that the margin for error is razor thin. If Jones is indeed a system-dependent player, the loss of experienced veterans and the physical challenges of recovery could expose the very flaws that Solak believes were always present. It is this specific intersection of past performance and current physical limitations that makes Jones one of the most unpredictable variables in the NFL today. The transition from being an MVP candidate in early 2025 to being a recovery project in 2026 is a massive shift, and the Colts are currently caught in the middle of this unpredictable arc. The organization is forced to balance the memory of his early season dominance with the cold, hard reality of his late season decline and the subsequent need for intensive medical rehabilitation. As the 2026 kickoff approaches, the eyes of the league will be fixed on Indianapolis to see if Daniel Jones can silence his critics. The roadmap for a return to high-end production is technically available. He proved he could excel within Shane Steichen's scheme, and the presence of stars like Jonathan Taylor provides a platform that many quarterbacks would envy. However, the skepticism remains entrenched because the NFL rarely offers easy solutions to players who have spent half a decade battling inconsistency. Jones is now in a position where he must not only prove he is healthy, but also demonstrate that he can elevate the play of a receiving core that is still unproven in key areas. If he can maintain the accuracy he displayed in the first half of 2025, the Colts could once again find themselves in the playoff hunt, but any sign of the regression seen in the second half of that campaign will invite immediate calls for change. The franchise is essentially standing at a crossroads, waiting to see which version of Jones will step onto the field this year. Will he be the efficient, decisive playmaker who took the league by storm, or will he mirror the struggles of his past? The answers will dictate the trajectory of the team for the foreseeable future. There is no middle ground in this narrative. Jones is either the answer to the Colts' long-term prayers or a cautionary tale of what happens when a team mistakes a short-term hot streak for a permanent change in ability. Supporters continue to rally with "For the Shoe," hoping for a storybook recovery, while analysts continue to monitor the metrics that suggest the most difficult phase of his tenure with Indianapolis is still ahead.